Archaeologists have discovered a huge ancient city hidden underground which may give a better understanding of the civilization.
You won't believe what's been discovered deep in the heart of the desert. Lost temples, hidden beneath centuries of sand.
Known for their distinctive temples and cities which stood for centuries, but due to factors such as war and disease, faded into obscurity around 300 years ago.
Have finally been uncovered, and it's like nothing anyone expected. The walls are covered in strange symbols, an unknown language that has experts completely baffled. Archaeologists are scrambling to decode the markings, hoping to unlock secrets that could rewrite history. So, let's dive right in. Well, who knew that uncovering lost cities could be as exhilarating as an Indiana Jones movie? Enter Mahendraparvata, also known as the Mountain of the Great Indra, hidden away in the dense jungles of Cambodia's Phnom Kulen Plateau, just about 40 kilometers north of the famed Angkor Wat. This ancient gem from the Khmer Empire era had kept itself quite the mystery, tucked away under a blanket of green. Now, while we all love a good old ancient inscription, Mahendraparvata's precise whereabouts have had everyone playing a game of historical hide-and-seek since the late 19th century, when French explorers first tried to get a peek. But really, it was like trying to find a needle in a haystack. That is, until 2008, when Jean-Baptiste Chevance and his Archaeology and Development Foundation team decided it was time to mix a little modern tech with ancient lore. Then came the game changer in 2012, LiDAR technology. Think of it as X-ray vision, but from a helicopter, which can magically see through the forest canopy to the secrets below. Over a thrilling 7-day aerial survey, this tech uncovered a sprawling urban network stretching about 40 to 50 square kilometers. The city was laid out in a neat grid pattern, which honestly makes some of our modern cities look haphazard by comparison. And oh, the things they found. We're talking over 30 temples that no one had documented before, roads that could rival some highways today at 60 meters wide, and an intricate maze of water management systems with reservoirs, dikes, and canals that showed these folks were not messing around when it came to city planning. The next step, ground verification, because seeing is believing, right? This part of the adventure had its own set of challenges, including navigating through landmines left from past conflicts. Yeah, it got a bit dicey. The teams trekked through tough terrains, but were rewarded with incredible finds that matched up with the LiDAR data. Damian Evans, a co-leader of the expedition, probably summed it up best when he said this tech is set to revolutionize our understanding of ancient civilizations. And really, they're just getting started. Now, while Mahendraparvata's discovery is like unboxing a treasure chest, it doesn't hold a candle to the architectural marvels of ancient Egypt. Take the Temple of Edfu, for instance. Nestled on the west bank of the Nile, this temple is a dedication to the falcon god Horus and is as grand as it gets. Built between 237 and 57 BCE during the Ptolemaic dynasty, Edfu stands today in nearly pristine condition. For centuries, it played hide-and-seek under layers of desert sand and Nile silt, until some eagle-eyed French scholars during Napoleon Bonaparte's Egyptian campaign in 1798 noticed something pretty grand peeking out from beneath the sands. At the time, only the top parts of the temple's pylons were visible, like the tip of an iceberg. Fast forward to the mid-1800s, and along comes French Egyptologist Auguste Mariette, who probably thought, let's dig this beauty out. And dig they did. Starting in 1860, Mariette's team began the Herculean task of excavating the Edfu temple, shoveling through mountains of sand accumulated over millennia. Their hard work paid off, slowly unveiling the temple's splendor that had been playing a centuries-long game of hide-and-seek. Thanks to their efforts, we now marvel at Edfu's intricate carvings and hieroglyphics, which tell tales of ancient rituals and daily Egyptian life like a stone-carved comic strip. This rediscovery didn't just put a pin on the map for historians, but also opened a treasure chest of information on how the ancient Egyptians lived, prayed and played. Now hop over to a different part of the world and fast forward to 2004. Tamil Nadu, India is about to experience its own historical reveal thanks to nature's fury, but not the kind you might think. When a massive tsunami receded near Mahabalipuram, it unveiled something extraordinary near the village of Saluvankuppam, not far from the heritage-rich town itself. Buried beneath layers of time and tide, an ancient boulder at the Tiger Cave complex emerged, revealing inscriptions that had been lost to history. These inscriptions, dating all the way back to the 10th century, hinted at a temple dedicated to Lord Murugan, also known as Subramanya. You bet that caught the eye of the Archaeological Survey of India, ASI, who, fueled by curiosity and armed with trowels, launched an excavation in 2005 under the guidance of Assistant Archaeologist G. Thirumurthy. The team first uncovered an 8th century granite temple digging into the mound near Tiger Cave. This wasn't just any old pile of rocks. It bore the classic hallmarks of Pallava dynasty architecture. Think intricate carvings and a sanctum sanctorum that would make any historian's heart skip a beat. But the plot thickened. Beneath this granite marvel, the team unearthed an even older temple made of bricks, rooted way back in the Sangam period, around the 3rd century BCE to the 3rd century CE. This wasn't just a small find either. The brick structure stretched out 2 meters in length and 2.2 meters in width, with 27 courses of bricks. These were the same kind of bricks found at other Sangamera sites like Puhar and Arakamidu, showcasing some serious ancient building chops. This double-decker of history, featuring both the brick and granite temples, offered a rare glimpse into the region's cultural evolution. And it wasn't just about the buildings. The site was littered with artifacts that tell tales of daily life and spiritual practices back in the day. From a terracotta Nandi, Shiva's bull, not just any bull, and terracotta lamps to potsherds and a Shivalinga made of green stone. Each piece added to the narrative of ancient lifestyles. Adding a cherry on top, the Saluvankuppam Murugan Temple stands out for facing north, a rare orientation for Hindu temples, which typically face east or west. This unique feature, along with its architectural style and artifacts, marks it as one of Tamil Nadu's oldest testimonies of Lord Murugan's reverence. Now, let's jet over to eastern Georgia, where nestled about 10 kilometers east of Gori, in the Shida-Kartli region, you'll find Uplistsike, this ancient rock-hewn town whose name translates to the Lord's Fortress. Is quite the spectacle. This ancient rock-hewn town is a fascinating mesh of architecture, carved right into the cliffs along the Matkvari River. Now this place isn't just old, it's ancient with a capital A, harking back to the early Iron Age around the 2nd millennium BC. During this time, people were carving out a life here long before the hustle and bustle of modern cities, creating a unique blend of rock-cut styles that borrowed from both Anatolia and Iran. It's like a cultural crossroads frozen in stone, showing off the coexistence of pagan and Christian vibes throughout the ages. But wait, there's more to this story. It wasn't until the mid-20th century that folks really started digging into what Uplistsike was all about. In the 1950s, a savvy Georgian archaeologist named Parmen Zachariah decided it was time to uncover the layers of history buried in this cave city. His digs turned up all sorts of goodies: gold, silver, and bronze jewelry, not to mention ceramics and sculptures that give us a sneak peek into daily life back then. And boy, did they find out it was a bustling political and religious hub, especially during the late Hellenistic period. Structurally speaking, Uplistsike is a bit of a maze. Spread over about 8 hectares, it's split into 3 main parts. The southern, that's the lower bit, the middle, central, and you guessed it, the busiest part, and the northern, upper areas. The central area is where the action is, packed with rock-cut structures connected by alleyways and staircases that could give any modern architect a run for their money. They even had a large hall with ceilings designed to mimic wooden logs. How's that for ancient ingenuity? Sadly, not all has been smooth sailing for Uplistsike. A massive earthquake earthquake in 1920 did a number on it, shaking up the place quite a bit. Since then, recognizing this gem's fragility, the Georgian government and some international buddies have been all hands on deck, working to keep it from falling apart. Fast forward to 2007, and bam, up Listsiki hits the big time, making it onto the UNESCO tentative list for World Heritage Sites. Now hopping over from the rugged terrains of Georgia to the picturesque landscapes of Turkey, let's drift into the story of Latun. Tucked away near Xanthos in modern-day Turkey, this ancient sanctuary was quite the spiritual hotspot for the Lycians back in the day. Its rediscovery, a saga of historical breadcrumbs, leading us right back to its glory days. The tale began in 1840 when Charles Fellows, a British archaeologist with a knack for stumbling upon lost cities, trotted through Asia Minor. He scribbled down notes about Xanthos and Latun, which were more or less a heads up about their significance. However, it wasn't until the 1950s that anyone really took a shovel to the place to see what was under the dirt. Enter Henri Metzger and his French archaeological mission in 1962, who got down to business by digging up the foundations of 3 Hellenistic temples dedicated to the goddess Leto and her twins, Artemis and Apollo. Their efforts didn't just give us a peek into architectural styles, but also a timeline of how the place evolved. But here's where it gets juicy. 1973 rolled around, and what did they find? The Latun trilingual stele. Talk about a linguistic treasure trove featuring Lycian, Greek, and Aramaic inscriptions. Dated to 337 BCE, this stele turned out to be a key to unlocking some mysteries of the Lycian language, now proudly displayed in the Fethai Museum. And because we can't leave well enough alone, between 2000 and 2007, there was a whole project dedicated to piecing together the Temple of Leto, kind of like the world's most complicated jigsaw puzzle. Using bits and bobs from previous digs, researchers managed to recreate a slice of ancient aesthetics. Thanks to a crew of dedicated archaeologists, Latun made it to the UNESCO World Heritage List in 1988, sharing the limelight with Xanthos. It's a testament to how a bit of curiosity can unearth a whole world of history. Not too far off, across the Indian Ocean, Koneswaram Temple in Sri Lanka tells another tale of historical highs and lows. Nestled in the coastal town of Trincomalee, this ancient Hindu shrine dedicated to Lord Shiva isn't just old, it's ancient, with roots stretching back over 2,000 years. Known for its breathtaking architecture and profound spiritual significance, Koneswaram had its fair share of highs and some pretty rough lows. In the early 17th century, colonial conflicts led to the temple being knocked down a peg or two, resulting in the loss of many precious artifacts and structures. Fast forward to 1950, and something rather unexpected happened. The Urban Council of Trincomalee was digging a water well near where the temple used to stand. Lo and behold, about 500 yards from the original site, workers stumbled upon several bronze statues buried deep under. Dating back to the 10th century CE, these statues included depictions of Shiva in his Somaskanda form, his consort Parvati, and the always lovable elephant-headed god Ganesha. It was like finding a hidden treasure chest that reconnected the present with the temple's storied past. The plot thickens when British sci-fi author and underwater explorer Arthur C. Clarke, along with photographer Mike Wilson, took a dive in 1956 near Swami Rock, the cliff underpinning the temple. Their underwater expedition uncovered parts of what were believed to be the original temple complex. Among the finds were intricately carved columns, floral motifs, and stones shaped like elephant heads. One of their most significant discoveries was the Swayambhu Lingam, a natural stone obelisk revered in Hinduism, which was later reinstalled at the temple site, marking a symbolic restoration of the shrine. Clarke, in his 1957 book, The Reefs of Taprobane, couldn't help but gush about the artistic brilliance of the artifacts and the long-standing reverence for Swami Rock. He dubbed the 10th century bronzes as some of the finest examples of Hindu bronze sculpture out there. Inspired by these discoveries, the local Hindu community, supported by international donors, got their act together, and by 1963, the temple was back in business, partially restored and ready for worship. Speaking of rediscoveries that stir up excitement, let's wade into the sands of Egypt, where the mortuary temple of Queen Hatshepsut at Deir el-Bahari has been turning heads. After centuries of playing hide-and-seek with history, the temple was rediscovered, revealing its full glory. It's not every day you find a building that's been through as much as this one. Originally documented in 1737 by the British traveler Richard Pocock, it wasn't just a pile of rocks, but a majestic structure peeking out from under heaps of debris. Fast forward to Napoleon's Egyptian campaign in 1798, and you've got engineers like François Jollois and René-Édouard de Villiers sketching down every detail, making sure we knew this place was something special. In the early 1800s, the temple became somewhat of a treasure trove for explorers like Giovanni Battista Belzoni and Henry William Beechey, who, in 1817, decided to dig around, hoping to find some goodies for Henry Salt, the British consul in Egypt. Their digs were more about grabbing relics than truly understanding the place, but it's a start. The real archaeological heavy lifting kicked off in the 1850s under Auguste Mariette, who founded the Egyptian Antiquities Service. His team went all out, clearing out parts of the temple, including the shrines to Hathor and Anubis, and even a Coptic monastery from medieval times that had set up shop right on top of the ancient ruins. Now, jump to 1893, and the plot thickens with the Egypt Exploration Fund and a guy named Edouard Naville. And yes, Howard Carter was in on it too. They rolled up their sleeves until 1906, putting together a 7-volume epic about the temple's architecture and reliefs that's still a go-to for Egyptologists today. Herbert E. Winlock and his crew from the Metropolitan Museum of Art took over from 1911 to 1936, diving deeper into the temple's past and figuring out how it all came together. These guys were followed by Émile Barrès, who between 1925 and 1952 tried to bring some of the old splendor back, making the place visitor-ready. Since 1961, it's been the Polish Center of Mediterranean Archaeology of Warsaw University holding the reins. They started with the third terrace and eventually took on the whole complex under the watchful eyes of folks like Kazimierz Mikołowski and now Patrick Chudzik. They've opened up parts like the festival courtyard and the sanctuary of Amun, so everyone can marvel at what Queen Hatshepsut built way back when. Now, when it comes to pharaonic spectacles, few discoveries rival the Abu Simbel temples, a portal straight into ancient Egypt's golden age. In March 1813, Swiss explorer Johann Ludwig Burckhardt, traveling under the alias Sheikh Ibrahim ibn Abdallah, stumbled upon something extraordinary in southern Egypt. Half buried beneath the desert sands were the massive statues of Abu Simbel, remnants of a time long forgotten. These weren't just any sculptures, they were the towering masterpieces of Pharaoh Rameses II, carved during the grand era of the 13th century BCE. Burckhardt was trekking south of Khazar Ibrim in Nubia when the locals tipped him off about this breathtaking spot near the Nile at Ebsambal. He arrived on March 22nd, only to find the colossal statues' heads and torsos peeking out from under the sand. Imagine being the first modern eyes in who knows how long to see something that grand. His journal must have been filled with all caps that day. After getting back to Cairo, Burckhardt couldn't keep his mouth shut about what he saw. He shared his tales with Italian explorer Giovanni Battista Belzoni and British consul Henry Salt, who were all ears. Encouraged by their enthusiasm, Belzoni decided to take a crack at it and ventured out in 1817. On August 1st, after a back-breaking effort to move mountains of sand, Belzoni managed to wiggle his way into the Great Temple, marking his spot in history as the first modern explorer to do so. Inside, he found a treasure trove of bas-reliefs, paintings, and colossal statues that would make any art lover's heart skip a beat. Belzoni's findings weren't just a feather in his cap, they were a jackpot for the budding field of Egyptology. His detailed accounts and sketches threw a spotlight on Abu Simbel, turning it into a beacon for scholars and dreamers worldwide, eager to dive into its ancient allure and preserved greatness. Meanwhile, not too far away in Luxor, another colossal wonder lay hidden beneath centuries of sand and debris. debris, the Karnak Temple Complex. Sprawling across acres, it had settled into a long slumber, as if time itself had decided to wrap it in a dusty blanket and let it rest. Its rediscovery, nothing short of an archaeological gold rush, like stumbling upon a treasure chest in your backyard, except this one stretched across multiple football fields and held the whispered secrets of generations of pharaohs. Now, imagine being that anonymous Venetian traveler back in 1589, stumbling upon Karnak and scribbling down notes that would eventually wend their way into the Biblioteca Nazionale Centrale di Firenze. Talk about being a trendsetter in travel blogging. These notes lit a tiny spark about the monumental ruins in Upper Egypt, including Karnak and the Luxor Temple, among the Europeans. Fast forward to 1668 and enter Capuchin missionary brothers Protes and Charles Francois d'Orléans. These guys didn't just visit, they made sure to leave a legacy by being the first to actually record the name Karnak in their travel diaries. Thanks to them and a few notable others like Melchizedek Thévenot and Johann Michael van Sleb, who published their accounts, Karnak started becoming more than just a dot on the map to European scholars. Then there's French traveler Paul Lucas dropping his Voyage du Sieur Paul Lucas au Levant in 1704, complete with the first drawings of Karnak. Okay, they weren't perfect, but they sure did sprinkle a bit more intrigue into the mix, nudging historians and archaeologists to lean in a bit closer. Through the 18th century, explorers like English traveler Richard Pocock popped over, did their bit of oohing and ahing, and sketched up a storm, contributing to our understanding of the place. But in 1899, a major oopsie happened. 11 massive columns of the Great Hypostyle Hall decided to call it quits and collapsed. Enter Georges Legrand, French Egyptologist and the chief inspector of antiquities for Upper Egypt, who got down to the nitty-gritty of putting these puzzle pieces back together. But wait, there's more. In 1903, smack in the middle of restoration, Legrand hit the jackpot. A hidden cachette, cozily housing nearly 800 stone statues and about 17,000 bronze artifacts. Talk about a holy haul. This treasure trove was like opening a window straight into the ancients' religious lives and artistic flair. Now, cruising from the sandy embraces of Egypt to the rugged terrains of central Anatolia, Hattusa awaits, a once bustling capital of the Hittite Empire. It wasn't until 1834 that Charles Texier, a French architect moonlighting as an explorer, stumbled upon its extensive ruins near what's now Boaz-Kale. He actually mistook it for Pteria, an ancient Median city. You've gotta love it when a historical mix-up sparks a whole scholarly buzz. Following Texier's accidental tourism, a slew of curious explorers dropped by. 2 years later, British geologist William John Hamilton swung by, sketching up a storm at the Great Temple, and throwing around guesses like maybe this was Tavium, a city name dropped by folks like Herodotus and Strabo. In 1861, Georges Perrault from France wasn't about to be left out. He led a team, raising eyebrows with his theory that these were indeed the ruins of Pteria, mentioned during the epic showdown between Croesus of Lydia and Cyrus II of Persia. The real game changer rocked up in 1882 with Karl Humann, a German engineer with a knack for archaeology. Karl didn't just roam around, he went full-on CSY Anatolia, mapping the area and making plaster casts of the reliefs at the nearby sanctuary of Yazulukaya. Thanks to him, things started getting a bit more serious. Fast forward to 1893, and things got even more serious when archaeologist Ernest Chantre launched the first official dig. And then, jackpot. As they peeled back the layers of earth, they uncovered cuneiform tablets, teasing at a hidden wealth of historical revelations. But hold your horses, it gets better. In 1906, Hugo Winkler, alongside Ottoman archaeologist Theodore Macready, really hit the archaeological lottery. They unearthed around 2,500 clay tablet fragments. Among these treasures was the Akkadian version of a peace treaty. This wasn't just any treaty, but the peace agreement between Hittite king Hattusili III and Egyptian pharaoh Ramses II, marking making the earliest known parity-based peace treaty. Yep, those ruins were indeed Hattusa. The digs had to hit pause for World War I, but they were back on track by 1931 under Kurt Bittel of the German Archeological Institute. Bittel wasn't messing around. He dove right into uncovering major structures like the Royal Citadel of Buyukali, the Great Temple, and the city's hefty fortifications. World War II threw another wrench in the works. But by 1952, it was game on again, with Bittel still at the helm, piecing together the city's history like a jigsaw. Just as the mysteries of Hattusa started making sense, another remarkable site invites curiosity: the Temple of Kam Ombo. Situated in Upper Egypt, this architectural marvel from between 180 and 47 BC serves up a double dose of divinity, dedicated to both the crocodile god Sobek and the falcon god Haroeris, or Horus the Elder. Its symmetrical layout with separate courts, halls, sanctuaries, and rooms for each deity ensures that celestial cohabitation checks all the boxes of divine decorum and design. Now, even the mightiest of structures face their share of troubles, and Kam Ombo is no exception. Over the years, it's taken quite a beating from both Mother Nature and humans. The Nile River crept up a little too close for comfort, earthquakes shook its foundations, and locals at one time even repurposed its stones for new buildings. And let's not forget the Copts, who, finding the temple a good spot for a church, didn't exactly leave the interior reliefs in pristine condition. But fear not, because Jacques de Morgan came to the rescue in 1893. This French archaeologist rolled up his sleeves, cleared out centuries of debris, and kicked off restoration efforts that helped preserve the temple's grandeur. His work revealed stunning reliefs and inscriptions that tell tales of ancient rituals and deities, giving us a peek into the spiritual life back then. The layout of Kam Ombo is particularly fascinating. The south caters to Sobek, the crocodile god linked to fertility and creation myths. On the flip side, the north is all about Haroeris. This architectural duality ensures that both gods are treated with equal reverence, mirroring the temple's balanced design. And just when you think it couldn't get more intriguing, there are the reliefs that showcase surgical instruments. Yes, ancient Egyptian carvings that represent some of the earliest medical tools, highlighting how advanced they were in health and medicine. Now, keeping with the theme of impressive ruins that tell the story of empires, let's jet over to the Temple of Caracalla's Victory in Germany. Nestled in the ancient city of Duga, modern-day Tunisia, this temple stands as a proud reminder of Roman imperial architecture and the empire's expansive reach. The excitement kicked off in 1835 when someone stumbled upon fragments of an inscription on the temple's lintel. But it wasn't until 1966 that the brains of the operation put all the pieces together and figured out what they were actually looking at. This temple, measuring a neat 41.5 meters, parks itself beside the road leading down from the Forum to the Ain Dura Bath. Now, if you're imagining a typical Roman temple, flush with Corinthian columns and sprawling courtyards, think again. Our star here breaks the mold with its Tuscan order and a cozy Tetra-style design in Antis. Want to step inside? You'll need to climb a charming semicircular staircase first. Inside, the sanctuary's got a lineup of 6 niches, each ready to house statues of the heavy hitters like Apollo and Neptune, among others. Now here's where it gets juicy. Dedicated in AD 214, the temple gives a nod to Victoria. That's the goddess of victory for those not up on their deities, celebrating Emperor Caracalla's military escapades in Germany. But wait, there's more. The inscription dishes out that this architectural gem cost a cool 100,000 sestertii, all bankrolled by the local celeb, Gabinia Hermiona. Talk about generosity. She didn't just stop with a temple. She threw in land for a circus too, for the pleasure of the people. Sounds like she was quite the philanthropist, wanting to make sure her neighbors had a good time. Fast forward to the late 4th century, and we've got a major makeover on our hands. The temple got a second life as a church. They filled up the courtyard reservoirs to make room for the congregation and popped some pulpits into the cella. It just goes to show that a good piece of real estate is always in demand, whether for divine worship or divine services. Now let's cruise over to another corner of history where things get even more interesting. The Temple of Concordia in Agrigento, Sicily. Nestled in the scenic Valley of the Temples, this Doric temple is not just standing, it's showing off. Built between 440 and 430 BC, it stretches to a grand 39.42 meters in length and 16.92 meters wide, with towering columns reaching up to 8.93 meters high. Now, why call it Concordia? Well, thanks to a Latin inscription they found lying around. That's the name we've got, although who exactly was supposed to be getting all the prayers here remains a bit of a mystery. Fast forward to the 6th century AD, and Bishop Gregory of Agrigento decides it's time the temple had a second act. He transforms it into a Christian basilica dedicated to Saints Peter and Paul. His renovations? Pretty clever. He fills in between the columns, tweaks the cella walls into arches, and voila, structural integrity is maintained. But as time marched on, the basilica vibes faded, and by the 18th century, the temple was pretty much just sitting pretty, worrying folks about how long it would keep up the act. Enter Prince Gabriele Castello of Torremuzza and his trusty architect, Carlo Cenci, in 1785. These guys took on the challenge of peeling back the Christian layers to reveal the classical charm underneath. Their restoration was part of a larger trend at that time, where everyone was digging, sometimes literally classical antiquities. Thanks to those smart moves back in the day, turning it into a church and all, the Temple of Concordia dodged the usual fate that befell many of its pagan peers. Now, it's a magnet for scholars and tourists from all over, all eager to soak in the splendor of one of the world's best preserved Greek temples. What do you think about these mysterious temples? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this discovery intriguing, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more captivating historical finds, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.